Why did she laugh? Even now, hours later, she asked herself the same question. Why did she mock his silence out loud, as if the absence of words was weakness? Maybe it was the tension in the room. Maybe it was her own nerves. Or maybe it was because silence made her uncomfortable, because it reminded her too much of home, of that farmhouse in Nebraska where silence had become her enemy. The kind of silence that came after the phone call telling her he wouldn't be coming back. He hadn't responded to her mockery. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't even shifted in his chair. But his eyes, those piercing eyes, had cut straight through her. And in that moment she had fallen quiet, ashamed at how much her bravado had betrayed her fear. The briefing room was packed, but she felt alone. The projector hummed, throwing maps and coordinates onto the wall. Commanders spoke, their words clipped, urgent. But she was stuck replaying that glance. The way his stare seemed to know everything she hadn't said, everything she was hiding. Outside, the rain beat against the hangar roof. A storm had rolled in, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. No one commented on it. Soldiers didn't. They learned to live with weather the same way they lived with loss, quietly, without fuss. She shifted in her seat. Her nameplate read, LT, Sarah Kane, recon pilot, the youngest officer in the room, 29 years old, yet her face carried a weight that made her seem older. Operation Iron Veil, the colonel said. We breach at 300, in and out. No visibility, no support, no mistakes. Her throat tightened. The colonel's voice faded as her mind drifted to the reason she'd volunteered. Nobody here knew. Not the colonel, not her squad, not even the silent one with the burning eyes. They thought she was here because she was skilled, because her record made her the obvious choice. But that wasn't it. Not entirely. She was here because of him. The brother she'd lost 3 years ago. The one whose name she still couldn't say without her chest tightening. He had died in an ambush not far from the very coordinates flashing on the projector now. Same mountains, same ridgelines. And now she was flying straight into the ghosts of his last moments. Questions, the colonel asked. Chairs shifted, boots scraped. Nobody spoke. Except her. What about extraction? She asked, her voice calm though inside her heart pounded. The colonel's jaw flexed. You'll have it if you do your job. A few chuckles rippled across the room, but not from the silent man. His eyes didn't leave her. She felt the weight again. Heavy, judging, or maybe understanding. She looked away first. Yeah. Hours later, the base was quiet. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy with the smell of wet earth and fuel. Sarah sat alone in the cockpit of her bird, running her pre-flight checks, fingers brushing over switches, eyes scanning gauges. The ritual steadied her. Machines were honest. Unlike people, they didn't hide. They either worked or they didn't. Her headset crackled. Kane, you're early. It was Ramirez, the crew chief. He leaned against the ladder, grinning that tired grin of his. A father of 2, photos of his kids taped inside his toolbox. He always carried the weight of leaving them behind, but he hid it under humor. Couldn't sleep, Sarah said. Big day tomorrow, huh? She nodded, big day. He studied her, you all right? She hesitated. That was the problem with men like Ramirez. They asked questions they actually wanted answers to, and she wasn't ready to give them. Yeah, she lied softly. He didn't push, just patted the side of the bird and said, she'll take care of you just like always. Then he walked off, boots echoing in the empty hangar. She stayed in the cockpit long after he left, staring into the dark, listening to the ticking of cooling metal, wondering if tomorrow she'd come back, wondering if she even wanted to. Yeah. At 200, the team assembled. Black fatigues, weapons checked, faces painted with that hollow focus soldiers wore before the unknown. The silent one was there too, seated against a crate, tightening the strap of his rifle. She realized she didn't even know his name. She had mocked him, and yet she hadn't bothered to ask. The colonel gave the final rundown, short, sharp, clinical, but Sarah barely heard him. Her chest ached with a pressure she couldn't name. Fear, maybe, or anticipation, or the ghost of her brother's last breath. They boarded. Engines roared to life, rotor blades cutting the night. The vibration filled her chest, steadying her heartbeat. This was her element. Up here, above the ground, above the blood and mud, she felt almost untouchable. Almost. The mission was simple on paper. Fly low into the valley, insert the team near grid Delta 7 and hold until extraction. But missions were never simple. Not when the mountains remembered. As the bird lifted, Sarah's eyes scanned the horizon. Moonlight spilled across jagged peaks, snow glistening like shards of glass. The world below was silent, but not the kind of silence that comforted. This was the kind that waited. And then she felt it, his eyes on her again. From the jump seat across the cabin, the silent man watched her. Not threatening, not cruel, just watching. And she hated how much it unsettled her. She tightened her grip on the controls. "What are you staring at?" She snapped through the headset, forgetting the comms were open. The cabin went still. A few soldiers exchanged glances. But he didn't answer. He just looked at her, steady, unflinching. Her face burned. She wanted to say more, to claw back the control she'd lost, but the words stuck. And so she fell quiet, just as she had in the briefing room. This time, though, it wasn't shame that silenced her. It was something else. Something she didn't yet understand.
Yeah.
The flight stretched long, the hum of engines masking the thoughts pounding in her head. She remembered her brother's last letter. His handwriting crooked, rushed. "Don't let them forget me, Sarah." She clenched her jaw. She hadn't forgotten. She never would. And maybe that was why she was here, to remind herself he still mattered. That his death wasn't just another statistic, another folded flag. The valley opened ahead, dark and wide. Sarah lowered altitude, skimming treetops. Her hands were steady, but inside, her chest throbbed with a rhythm that wasn't hers. And then a voice in her headset. Low, calm, unexpected. "You fly like someone who's lost before." Her breath caught. She knew instantly who it was. The silent one. The first words she had ever heard him speak. She didn't answer, couldn't. But his words clung to her, because he was right. And because he knew.
Yeah.
The bird touched down. The team disembarked, boots sinking into damp earth, weapons raised, eyes sharp. Sarah kept the rotors hot, watching them melt into the tree line like shadows. Her chest tightened as she realized the truth. This mission wasn't just theirs. It was hers. A chance to face the silence that haunted her. A chance to answer the voice that had asked, "Don't let them forget me." The night swallowed the team whole. And Sarah Kane sat alone in the cockpit, hearing nothing but the thrum of her own heart. For the first time, she didn't mock silence. She feared it. What happens in the dark when no one is watching? That question sat heavy in Sarah's chest as the valley swallowed the men whole. Their black shapes moved like shadows through the tree line, rifles raised, boots soft against the damp ground. She wanted to follow them with her eyes, to trace every step, but the forest was merciless. It closed its jaws around them and gave nothing back. The bird idled, engines purring low. The vibration hummed through her bones, steady, like a heartbeat she borrowed to keep herself alive. Above, the moon played tricks with the clouds. One moment silver light spilled across the valley, the next it was gone, replaced by nothing but a suffocating dark. And then silence. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of calm, but the silence that pressed against her ears, thick and unnatural, like the earth itself was holding its breath. She reached up, adjusted her headset. Her breathing sounded too loud, her own pulse too obvious. She hated that about these weights. Every weakness suddenly had a microphone. Minutes stretched. The men had vanished deeper into the valley. Radios clicked with short bursts, one word, two words, but nothing more, controlled, professional. Still, Sarah's grip tightened on the stick. Her mind drifted. It always did during these waits. Back to Nebraska, back to the wide fields where silence meant something different. She remembered sitting on the porch with her brother, watching storms crawl across the horizon. The way he would point out where lightning struck, counting heartbeats until the thunder followed. He was never afraid of storms. "You can't fight the sky," he once told her. "You just survive it." Her lips tightened. He hadn't survived, not the ambush, not the betrayal, not the silence that came after. The radio crackled. "Eagle, this is Viper, hold position." Her eyes sharpened, she pressed her mic. "Copy, Viper, holding." More silence. Her fingers tapped the console. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm kept her anchored. Then something shifted. At first it was nothing more than a shadow sliding across the ridgeline. Her eyes caught it by instinct, the faintest ripple against the stars. She leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. Her gut turned cold. It wasn't the team. It wasn't them at all. Her throat went dry. A figure crouched along the rocks, watching, not moving like prey, moving like a hunter. Her hand moved to the comms. She froze. Would saying something give away her team? Would her voice break the fragile shield of silence that was protecting them now? And then she saw it, the glint of glass, the unmistakable curve of a scope catching moonlight. "Sniper!" Her blood iced. She keyed her mic, voice low, urgent. "Viper, eyes on ridgeline, east, possible overwatch." A pause, then the voice of the silent one, the same calm tone that had pierced her earlier. "Copy, we see it." No panic, no fear, just acknowledgement. She held her breath, watched through the windshield as shadows shifted below, her team adjusting, spreading out. Silent communication, no wasted words. And then crack. The sound shattered the night. A rifle, high caliber, too close. Sarah flinched. Her headset buzzed with sharp orders, the chaos of contact. But beneath it, steady as stone, his voice cut through. "Hold position, Eagle. Do not lift." Her knuckles whitened. Every instinct screamed to take off, to circle above, to shield them. But orders were orders, and his voice, calm, controlled, anchored her. Gunfire echoed in the valley, sharp bursts snapping off stone. Shadows danced through the trees. She could see nothing clear, only flashes, only fragments. Her chest tightened with helplessness. This was the worst part, being in the fight, yet apart from it. Watching, listening, waiting for the silence to break one way or the other. She closed her eyes for a moment, tried to breathe, tried to remind herself she was not helpless. She was here, and sometimes being here was enough. Minutes passed like hours, then slowly the noise faded, gunfire tapered, the valley exhaled. Her headset crackled again, the voice calm, target down, proceeding. She sagged back into her seat, only realizing now how tense her shoulders had been. Sweat prickled at her neck. Her breath trembled as it left her. But she said nothing, because what could she say?
Yeah.
The night dragged on. She waited, listened. The forest offered only scraps, footsteps over leaves, whispers of calms. The moon shifted westward, and still they pressed deeper. Sarah's eyes grew heavy, but she fought it. She couldn't sleep. Not now, not while they were out there. Her thoughts drifted again, to her brother, to the silence that had followed his death. Everyone had grieved loud for a week. The funeral, the flag, the words of politicians who never knew him. And then quiet, forgotten quiet. People moved on. But she hadn't. She couldn't. That was why she was here, because silence had stolen him, and she refused to let it steal her too. A noise snapped her back, crackling, rustling, not on comms outside. Her head shot up, eyes darted across the tree line. Something moved, fast, too fast. She flicked her spotlight. For a split second she saw them, two figures sprinting, rifles glinting. Not hers, enemy. "Contact," she barked. Her bird roared to life, rotors biting harder into the air. She swung the spotlight wide, the beams slicing across the valley. Gunfire erupted again. Close, too close, the enemy had slipped through. Her hands hovered over the controls. Every muscle screamed to lift, to fight, to do something. But orders echoed in her head. Hold position. Do not lift. Her breath came ragged, her heart pounded. She could almost see her brother's face, whispering the same words he had once said on that porch. You can't fight the sky, you just survive it. She swallowed hard, fingers trembling, then she froze. Their shadows breaking from the tree line. Not enemy, her team. They burst into the clearing, low and fast, one man dragging another by the vest. Her chest clenched, someone was down. The silent one was at the rear, firing short, controlled bursts, keeping the enemy at bay. His face was calm, eyes sharp. Even in chaos, he was still silent. Eagle were coming hot. Her training snapped into gear. Hands moved, engines screamed. The bird lifted just enough, side door yawning open. Boots thudded against the ramp. Shouts filled the cabin. The wounded man groaned, blood dark against his fatigues. The silent one was last aboard, leaping in as rounds snapped past the fuselage. Go, go, go. She yanked the stick. The bird clawed skyward, rotors slicing the night. Tracers whizzed past, red lines in the dark. But she didn't flinch. Not now, not when lives hung in her hands. The valley fell away beneath them. The enemy fire faded. The night reclaimed its silence. But this time it wasn't empty, it was heavy. She glanced back. The wounded man writhed, medics working frantic hands. Blood soaked the floor. The others sat tense, weapons ready, eyes distant. And then her gaze landed on him, the silent one. He sat steady, rifle across his lap, chest heaving but eyes unwavering. For the first time she noticed the faintest tremor in his hands, just a flicker, just enough to remind her he wasn't made of stone, he was human. Their eyes met, and once again she felt it, the weight, not judging, not condemning, just knowing. Her throat tightened. She wanted to look away, she couldn't. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. He saw her, not the pilot, not the officer, not the mask she wore. He saw the cracks beneath, the grief, the silence she feared. And she hated it, because she had spent years hiding.
Yeah.
The bird raced toward extraction. Wind screamed against the fuselage. The wounded man's groans mixed with the medic's urgent commands. Sarah gripped the stick tighter, eyes locked on the horizon. She couldn't think about the blood behind her. She couldn't think about the eyes watching her. She couldn't think about her brother, about silence, about anything except the flight path. But the thought still crept in, unstoppable. How many more would the silence take? What does it take for silence to break? Sometimes not words. Sometimes just a sound too sharp to ignore. For Sarah, it was the groan behind her. Low, pained, human. The kind of sound that dragged her back no matter how tightly she tried to focus on the horizon. She kept her hands firm on the controls, but her ears betrayed her. Every ragged breath of the wounded man, every barked order from the medics, every clatter of gear hitting the metal floor, it all sank into her chest. The bird sliced through the night, steady and strong, but Sarah's insides weren't steady. Her brother had sounded like that once, on the phone. She remembered the recording they let her hear after the ambush. A fragment, a whisper caught on comms before the line went dead. His voice had been broken, strained, fighting for air, and she hadn't been there. Now someone else's brother groaned behind her, and this time she was here. She forced her eyes to the altimeter, to the gauges, to the numbers that didn't bleed. Machines didn't cry. Machines didn't die. Pressure's dropping, he's fatting, a medic shouted. Her throat tightened. She wanted to turn, to look, to prove to herself she could face it, but she couldn't. Not yet. Not when the stick demanded her hands. 10 minutes out, she forced out, her voice clipped. Silence followed for half a beat. Then the voice she knew would come, the silent one, calm, solid, he'll hold. No doubt, no question, just certainty. And somehow, Sarah believed him more than she believed herself.
Yeah.
The extraction zone appeared as a clearing carved from forest, faint lights marking its edges. A second bird waited, rotors thundering, crew on standby. Sarah brought her bird down hard but clean. Metal kissed dirt. Ramp dropped. The wounded man was carried out on a stretcher, medics running him to the waiting bird. The rest of the team disembarked, weapons still up, scanning. The silent one lingered at the ramp, his eyes fixed on Sarah. For a moment she thought he might say something. He didn't. He just gave a single nod before disappearing into the dark. The ramp lifted, engines roared again, and just like that she was airborne, alone with her thoughts. But her chest still carried the weight of his nod.
Yeah.
The base was quiet when she landed. The storm had cleared, leaving stars sharp and merciless overhead. She shut down her bird slowly, each switch a ritual, each click a way to delay the silence waiting outside. When the engines finally wound down, the night pressed in. No voices, no hum of machinery, just the kind of quiet she hated. She climbed down the ladder, boots hitting wet concrete, and there he was. The silent one, leaning against a fuel drum, arms folded, eyes steady. She froze, her heart stuttered. Why was he here? Good flying, he said. His voice was low, rough, as if unused. It startled her more than gunfire. She had mocked his silence. Now he was breaking it. Thanks, she muttered, not knowing what else to say. He studied her, not her rank, not her uniform, her, the person beneath. You lost someone, he said, not a question, a statement. Her stomach dropped. She opened her mouth, closed it. The words caught like barbed wire in her throat. Finally she whispered, my brother. He nodded once, not pity, not surprise, just understanding. Silence stretched between them, but this silence was different, not hostile, not empty, just real. Then he said, we all have ghosts. The trick is not letting them fly the bird for you. Her chest ached. She wanted to argue, to say she wasn't haunted, that she was fine, but she couldn't lie, not to those eyes. He pushed off the drum, adjusted his rifle strap, and walked past her without another word. And she stood there, alone, more shaken by his few words than by the night's gunfire.
Yeah.
Hours later she sat in the mess hall, empty except for the hum of a fridge and the faint buzz of a light overhead. Her tray sat untouched, coffee cold. She pulled out the letter, the one she carried always, her brother's last. The paper was creased, edges worn. She knew every line by heart, but still she unfolded it. Don't let them forget me, Sarah. Her eyes burned. She blinked hard, but the tears came anyway. She pressed the paper flat against the table, as if smoothing it could erase the ache inside her. Footsteps broke the quiet. She looked up. It was him, the silent one. Of course. He walked in, grabbed a mug, filled it with black coffee. He didn't look at her, not at first, but when he finally did, his eyes landed on the letter. She slid it shut instinctively, hand covering it. Too late, he'd already seen. He sat across from her, uninvited. His silence wasn't heavy this time, it was steady, like stone, like something to lean on. Finally he said, my brother too. Her breath caught, she stared at him. His jaw was tight, his eyes distant now, seeing something far away. Afghanistan, he said. Convoy hit an IED. I was supposed to be there, I was. His voice didn't shake, but she heard the fracture anyway. And for the first time, she understood his silence. It wasn't emptiness, it was survival. She swallowed hard, her own silence pressed back. The two of them sat there, across a metal table, two soldiers bound by ghosts. For once, Sarah didn't hate the quiet.
Yeah.
Morning came harsh, orders were issued, the mission wasn't over. Enemy movement in the valley, the colonel said. They know we're here now, this won't get easier. Maps unfolded, routes planned. Sarah's role was clear, she'd fly again. Insert extract support. She glanced across the room, he was there too, calm, silent, watching. And she knew then, whatever this mission demanded, whatever silence it forced upon them, she wasn't facing it alone anymore. But there was something she hadn't told him, not yet. That she didn't just fly for her brother. She flew to silence the part of herself that sometimes wished she'd been the one taken instead. And she didn't know how long she could keep that secret buried. How long can someone hold a secret before it starts holding them? Sarah asked herself that as she strapped into her bird again. The base stirred around her, soldiers moving with purpose, orders cutting through the morning air. But inside, she felt the weight of words unspoken. She had told him only part of the truth, that she'd lost her brother, but not the rest, not the darker part, the part that whispered at night that maybe it should have been her instead, that maybe she was the one who was supposed to be in the dirt, not him. The silence inside her carried that truth like a hidden wound, and she knew if he ever looked too closely he'd see it. Engines roared to life. The bird trembled, eager to fly. She checked her gauges, hands steady though her chest was. The colonel's voice came through comms. Intel confirms enemy regrouping near the ridgeline. They'll move heavy weapons before nightfall. You're the eye in the sky, Kane. Keep them blind. Copy, she replied. The Silent One's team boarded again, their movements sharp, practiced. He was last as always. He didn't speak, but when his eyes met hers, the same unflinching steadiness passed between them. It was both anchor and mirror. The ramp shut, the bird lifted, and once again the valley opened beneath them.
Yeah.
The morning sun painted the ridges gold, beautiful if not for the death hiding in their shadows. Sarah flew low, hugging terrain, the bird gliding through valleys like a predator itself. The headset hummed with comms traffic, clipped words between squads moving below. Then movement. Her eyes caught it instantly. Trucks, dust plumes on a dirt road winding between cliffs, armed men on the beds, weapons mounted. She keyed her mic. Eyes on convoy, approx 12 technicals heading north. The colonel's voice, confirmed, Viper team intercept. Her pulse quickened. This was the moment she both lived for and feared, the bridge between being a pilot and being a witness to war. She banked hard, tilting the bird for a better view. Dust trailed the convoy like a scar across the earth. The Silent One's voice broke through, calm, steady. Eagle, hold eyes, we move. She followed them from above, her bird circling wide, rotors thrumming like a heartbeat in the sky. Below, the team fanned out, melting into cover along the road. The trucks rolled closer, unaware. Sarah's breath held. Her brother's voice haunted her, don't let them forget me. And then contact. Explosions tore the road. Gunfire cracked. The convoy shattered in chaos. Men scattered, shouting, firing wild into rocks that bit back. From above, it looked like ants swarming. From below, it was hell. Sarah's eyes tracked one truck that veered off, speeding toward the tree line. Her gut clenched. She keyed her mic. Runner westbound, he'll bring reinforcements. Silence answered first, then his voice, on it. She watched as his shadow broke cover, sprinting low, fast. He moved like silence itself, efficient, no wasted motion. He cut across dirt, rifle rising. A short burst. The truck jerked, wheels locking, metal crunching as it slammed against rock. Her lungs finally released air. The fight raged below. Gunfire echoed through the valley, bouncing off ridges like angry thunder. Sarah circled, her bird steady, her eyes everywhere at once. But then smoke, a plume rising not from enemy fire but from the ground ahead. She narrowed her eyes. No, not smoke, dust, a second convoy. Her blood iced. She keyed her mic. Multiple hostiles inbound North Ridge, at least 20, maybe more. The colonel's voice was sharp. Viper, pull back, too many. But the Silent One's reply cut through. Negative, we finish this. Sarah's chest clenched. He was calm, but she heard the edge. The resolve of a man who had already buried too much. Gunfire intensified. Enemy reinforcements poured down the slope, shouting, firing. The valley erupted in chaos. Sarah gripped the stick. Every instinct screamed to fire, to intervene, to tear the sky open. But her orders were clear, eyes only. And that was the cruelest part. She could only watch.
Yeah.
Minutes stretched into an eternity. The team fought, retreating step by step, covering each other with desperate precision. The air filled with smoke, dust, gunfire, and the heavy rhythm of death circling closer. Sarah's headset crackled with voices, shouts, commands, screams cut short. Her throat burned as she held back the urge to break orders. And then she saw him. The silent one, standing firm at the rear, rifle spitting fire, his stance unshakable even as enemies swarmed. He was the anchor, the line between survival and collapse. Her chest ached watching him, because she knew that kind of silence only came from someone who had nothing left to lose. And she hated how much it looked like her. Finally, after what felt like hours, the colonel's voice broke through. Bird inbound. Extraction now. Sarah yanked the stick. The bird roared low, racing toward the clearing where smoke curled thick. She flared hard, ramp dropping, engines screaming. The team broke from the tree line, battered, bloodied, but alive. They scrambled aboard, dragging one more wounded. The silent one was last again, chest heaving, sweat streaked with dust. His eyes found hers even as he leapt aboard. Go! She pulled. The bird clawed skyward. Tracers reached for them but fell short. The valley shrank beneath them, smoke curling like fingers trying to hold them down. The cabin stank of blood, sweat, gunpowder. Medics worked frantic hands. Soldiers slumped, faces pale with exhaustion. Sarah's hands shook on the stick, not from fear, from restraint, from the unbearable truth that she had been forced to watch while others bled. And when her eyes flicked to him, seated against the wall, rifle slack across his lap, she saw the same truth in his silence. They both carried ghosts, and now they carried new ones.
Yeah.
The base that night was restless. Soldiers moved like shadows, voices low, tension heavy. Everyone knew tomorrow would be worse. Sarah sat alone by her bird, the metal still warm from flight. She ran her hand along its side like a prayer. Footsteps approached. She knew them before she looked. He stopped beside her. For a moment neither spoke. The night wrapped them in quiet. Finally he said, "You saw it too." Her throat tightened. She nodded. "They'll keep coming," he added. She looked at him then. His eyes burned, not with fear, not with defeat, but with something harder, resolve. Her voice cracked. "How do you do it, stay so calm?" He held her gaze. "I'm not calm, I'm just used to it." The words cut deeper than any bullet, because she realized so was she. And maybe that was the saddest truth of all.
Yeah.
Later, in the dark of her quarters, Sarah lay awake staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come, not with the echoes of gunfire in her ears, not with the memory of her brother's voice in her chest. She thought of the letter, of the line she couldn't forget, "Don't let them forget me." She whispered it into the dark, as if saying it out loud would make him less gone. But silence answered back. And in that silence she felt it, her secret clawing closer to the surface. The thought she couldn't bury forever. That maybe she wasn't flying for redemption at all. Maybe she was flying to see if she deserved to come back. The war wasn't slowing down. If anything, it was accelerating, each day tighter, bloodier, hungrier for names to etch into its endless ledger. By dawn, the valley was already alive again. Trucks rumbled, boots pounded mud, orders barked across radios. Sarah stood by her bird, helmet under her arm, watching the horizon burn with morning light. She should have been numb by now, but numbness was a luxury the war didn't hand out. It only pretended to. Behind her, the silent one approached. He always moved like that, present but never imposing, a shadow with weight. "Briefing in 5, he said. She nodded, falling in beside him.
Yeah.
The command tent was thick with tension. Maps spread across tables, dots, markers, lines, an entire war reduced to symbols and desperate plans. The colonel pointed at the ridgeline on the map. "Enemies dug in here. Mortars, emplacements, supplies, they've turned it into a fortress. We can't push north until it's gone. Sarah studied the map. The ridgeline stretched like a scar across the earth, a choke point, strategic, deadly. The colonel's gaze swept the room. Air support is limited. Too many birds lost last week. Which means, he tapped the table hard, this one's on you, Viper team. Murmurs rippled through the tent. Sir, one soldier said, we've seen their numbers. We go up that ridge, we won't come back. The colonel's jaw tightened. Then don't go up the ridge, find another way, but it has to fall, or we all die waiting. Silence, the weight of impossible orders. Then the silent one spoke, we'll need her. He didn't look at Sarah, but every head turned. Her chest tightened. She knew what he meant. Not just transport, not just eyes. He meant everything, her skill, her instincts, her willingness to dive headfirst into fire. The colonel nodded once. Then it's settled, you fly, they move, and together you break the ridge.
Yeah.
Outside, Sarah pulled her helmet on, heart hammering. She wasn't just flying anymore. She was part of the blade about to cut open the ridge. The silent one stopped her before she climbed into the cockpit. His voice was low, steady. Don't carry what happens next, just get us there, get us out. Her eyes locked on his. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe it was that simple. But she knew better.
Yeah.
The bird thundered skyward, its rotor slicing morning air. Below, the valley unrolled, scarred and restless. The ridgeline loomed ahead, jagged teeth waiting to bite. Sarah skimmed low, weaving between hills, every sense sharpened. The team sat silent in the back, faces hard, weapons ready. A tension that wasn't fear, it was the knowledge of odds stacked high and merciless. The silent one checked his gear, then lifted his gaze to her, just once. A look that carried more than words ever could, a promise maybe, or a warning. Then the ridge came into view. And with it fire.
Yeah.
Tracers screamed up from the slopes. Mortar shells arced, exploding too close. The bird shook, alarms blaring. Sarah gritted her teeth, banking hard, throwing the bird into violent dips and rolls. The world blurred with smoke and fire. Hold steady, a voice shouted from the back. Easy for you to say, Sarah snapped, knuckles white on the stick. The ridge spewed death, but she wove through it, daring it to hit her. Her bird skimmed treetops, ducked into ravines, burst out into open sky again. And through it all, her brother's voice whispered in her head, don't let them forget me. She roared over comms, hold on, and dropped the bird low, the ground rushing up. The ramp opened, the team leapt into chaos. Gunfire erupted instantly, echoing through the cliffs. Explosions rolled like thunder. The ridge was awake now, and it was hungry. Sarah yanked the bird back into the sky, circling wide, eyes scanning. Her chest heaved. Every instinct begged her to stay low, to fight, to rip the ridge apart. But her orders were clear, support, watch. She clenched her jaw so hard it hurt.
Yeah.
On the ground, the team carved a brutal path upward. They moved like shadows, ruthless and precise, but the ridge threw everything at them. Waves of men, rockets screaming, mortars pounding earth into shrapnel. Sarah's comms filled with chaos, shouts, gunfire, calls for cover. Her hands hovered over the trigger for her guns. She could end it. She could buy them seconds, maybe minutes. But the colonel's voice echoed in her head, eyes only. She slammed a fist against the console, fury choking her. Then she heard him. The silent one, his voice calm even in fire. Push forward, don't stop, we break them here. Her chest tightened. She could see him in her mind, cutting through smoke, unshakable. She wanted to believe he was invincible. But then, man down, a voice screamed. Her stomach dropped. The silence that followed was worse than the gunfire.
Yeah.
She circled tighter, eyes locked on the ridge. Smoke curled thick. Shadows moved, but distance blurred them. Then she saw it. The team pinned behind rock, fire raining down. The silent one at the front, rifle blazing, dragging another soldier by the vest. His movements were raw, desperate. Her breath caught. This wasn't calm, this wasn't just silence. This was a man burning himself alive to keep others breathing. And she couldn't do a damn thing. Her brother's voice screamed in her skull, "Don't let them forget me." She yanked her mic, "Command, they're pinned, they won't last." Static, then the colonel's voice, cold steel, "Hold position, extraction in 10. 10, she snapped, "they'll be dead in 2. Hold position, Kane, that's an order." Her vision blurred with rage. She slammed the console again, tears burning her eyes. On the ridge, she saw him fall to one knee, still firing. Enemies swarmed. Something in her snapped. Orders be damned. She dove.
The
The bird screamed downward, rotors howling. Sarah's hands were fire on the stick. She lined up the ridge, teeth bared. "Hang on," she whispered, more prayer than command. The bird's guns erupted. Tracers tore into enemy lines, ripping trenches apart, shredding emplacements. Explosions blossomed across the ridge. The ground shook. Men scattered, panicked, broken by sudden fury from the sky. The team lifted their heads, stunned. And in the chaos, Sarah saw him, still alive, still standing, eyes lifted to the roar above. For a heartbeat, their gazes met through smoke and fire. She saw it then, not calm, not silence, but gratitude, the kind that cuts deeper than any wound.
the
Minutes later, the ridge burned. Enemy fire faltered, then broke. The team surged forward, ruthless, clearing what was left. Sarah's bird hovered above, guns smoking, heart racing. Comms crackled, the colonel's voice furious, "Kane, what the hell did you just do?" Her voice shook, but it was steady. "I kept them alive." Static silence. Then quiet acknowledgement, "Get them home."
the
The ramp clanged shut. The team collapsed inside, battered, bloodied, but alive. Medics swarmed. Sarah's hands trembled on the stick, adrenaline flooding every vein. She glanced back once. The silent one sat slumped, armor scorched, dirt streaked across his face, but his eyes found hers. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. Because in that silence, she heard the truth louder than words. She wasn't the only one carrying ghosts. And tonight, neither of them had to carry alone. The ridge was behind them, burned out, gutted, silent. But silence after battle wasn't peace. It was a pause, a hollow place where echoes lived longer than men. Back at base, the bird touched down hard. Dust swirled. Medics rushed the ramp, pulling bodies, shouting orders. Sarah stayed in the cockpit, hands still gripping controls long after the engine died. Her fingers wouldn't unclench. Her whole body buzzed like the fight hadn't ended. It hadn't, not inside her. She finally stood, helmet under her arm, legs unsteady. She climbed down into the fading light, and that's when she saw him. The silent one. His armor was cracked, streaked with blood that wasn't all his. His helmet dangled from his hand. He moved with the weight of a man who'd carried more than his share up that ridge. Their eyes met, just for a second. She wanted to speak, wanted to tell him she wasn't sorry for breaking orders, that she'd do it again, that she didn't care what command thought. But he said nothing, just gave her the smallest nod before disappearing into the medical tent. And somehow, that silence was harder than any scream.
the
That night she couldn't sleep. The barracks were filled with the sounds of men dreaming badly, thrashing, groaning, muttering, ghosts visiting them in the dark. She sat on her bunk, staring at the floor. Her hands shook when she lifted her flask, but the burn of whiskey didn't calm her. Instead, it pulled her deeper into memory. Her brother. She saw him in her mind, younger than she was now. His laugh sharp, his stride easy. He had been the first to teach her how to shoot, how to breathe steady when the world shook. He had been the reason she joined. And then he was gone. One mission, one mistake, One name folded into a casualty list too long to finish reading. She had sworn they wouldn't forget him. But now she wondered if anyone remembered at all. The war was endless. Names came and went like smoke. Her throat tightened. Tears burned, but she bit them back. She couldn't let them fall here, not where weakness lived like rot.
Yeah.
The next morning, the colonel called her in. He didn't yell, didn't rage. That would have been easier. Instead, he sat behind his desk, eyes hard, voice low. You disobeyed a direct order. Sarah stood stiff, jaw locked, and it saved lives. He leaned forward. And if you'd been shot down, you would have cost us the only bird we had left. Do you understand that? Her silence was answer enough. The colonel sighed. I should ground you. Her chest tightened. Flying was the only place she could still breathe. But I can't, he said. We don't have the numbers, you're too valuable, so you're still flying. Relief flickered, but only for a second. Make no mistake, the colonel continued. Your instincts save them, but instincts get dangerous when they outrun orders. His words cut deeper than shouting ever could. She saluted, turned, and walked out, but inside her fury burned hot. Because if orders meant leaving men to die, then what good were they?
Yeah.
Later, she found herself near the medical tent. She didn't mean to. Her feet had just carried her there. Through the canvas, she could hear voices, the wounded, the moans, the hushed prayers. And then his. Low, rough, but steady. She froze, listening. He wasn't talking about the mission. He wasn't giving orders. He was telling a story to a wounded soldier who wouldn't stop shaking. Back home, there's a river, runs so wide you can't see the other side. My dad used to take me fishing there, said the water never kept secrets, always told you what was swimming below if you were patient enough. The soldier's breathing slowed. Sarah's throat tightened. She backed away before he saw her. She had never heard him say that much at once, and it struck her. His silence wasn't emptiness. It was choice. He carried words like bullets, used them only when they mattered. And somehow, that made them heavier than anything else.
Yeah.
2 nights later, the next mission came. Not a ridge this time. A convoy, supplies moving through mountain passes, intercept and destroy, simple on paper, never simple in blood. Sarah prepped her bird in the dark, rotors gleaming under the floodlights. The silent one approached, strapping gear tight. He paused beside her, eyes catching hers. Last time you broke orders. Her jaw clenched, and he tilted his head, studying her. And if you hadn't, I'd be dead. She blinked, caught off guard. I don't need you to follow orders, he said quietly. I need you to trust yourself. Then he turned, walking into the shadows. Her chest ached. She didn't know what to do with his words. But she carried them with her, as the bird lifted into the night.
Yeah.
The convoy moved slow, headlights cutting through mountain dark. Sarah stalked them from above, bird ghosting low between ridgelines. The team waited in the back, weapons ready. The silent one sat calm, rifle across his knees. But Sarah felt the tension coil. Something was off, too clean, too quiet. And then, the first explosion ripped the night apart. The convoy wasn't prey, it was bait. Rockets screamed from the cliffs, slamming into the valley floor. The birds shook violently, alarms blaring. Ambush, voices roared over comms. Sarah dove, weaving, heart-pounding. Tracers sliced the air around her. On the ground, enemy forces poured from the rocks, swarming the valley. The team disembarked straight into fire. Sarah's headset filled with chaos, shouts, gunfire. But through it all, his voice again. Calm, steady. Hold the line, push through, don't break. And they didn't. They fought like shadows, relentless, clawing for survival. Sarah hovered above, fury boiling. She wanted to tear the cliffs apart, to shred every ambusher where they stood. But she held, every nerve straining, waiting for the moment when her fire could save them without ending them too. She finally saw it, enemy reinforcements cresting the ridge. Too many, too close. She slammed her thumb down. Her bird screamed fire. The ridge erupted in flame and dust. The team surged forward, seizing the break, tearing through the ambush. Minutes later, it was over. The convoy burned, the enemy scattered. And the team lived.
Yes.
After, in the dark, when the last gunfire faded, Sarah circled above the valley. Her chest heaved, her hands trembled. She heard his voice over comms, quiet. "You saved them again." She swallowed hard. "I didn't follow orders." Silence. "Then, that's why you matter." Her throat closed, she couldn't speak. Because in that moment, she understood. He wasn't mocking her silence anymore. He was giving her his.
Yes.
That night back at base, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her brother's voice still echoed inside her. "Don't let them forget me." And now his voice joined it. "Trust yourself." Two ghosts, one blood, one living, both heavy. She didn't know if she could carry them both. But she knew she had to try. Why did the silence feel heavier now than the gunfire? Sarah walked across the tarmac at dusk, the air sharp with the smell of jet fuel and dust. Engines groaned in the distance, birds lifting into the purple horizon. The war didn't stop for sunsets, it only wore them like disguises. She had survived the ambush. They all had, but survival wasn't peace, it was wait. The silent one waited near the edge of the hangar, rifle slung, posture steady. His eyes tracked her as she approached. She hated how much that look rattled her, not because it was sharp, but because it felt like he saw through her armor, through the steel she carried, down to the place where grief lived raw. He said nothing, just walked with her toward the briefing tent. But inside, everything was about to fracture.
Yes.
The colonel's voice cut across the map table. "Satellite picked it up this morning. Enemy stronghold, bigger than the ridge, supply hub, command post. If we take it down, we carve their backbone." The team studied the map, eyes grim. One soldier muttered, "It'll be suicide." The colonel ignored him. "This isn't optional. You'll insert here, cut power, demolish the supply lines, and exfil before sunrise." Sarah's eyes traced the plan. It was madness, too deep, too fortified. She felt every instinct scream. And then she realized the colonel wasn't looking at the team. He was looking at her. "As pilot, you're key," he said. "This op doesn't happen without you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to point out how thin the plan was, but she remembered his last warning. Instincts get dangerous when they outrun orders. So she stayed silent. But silence didn't mean agreement.
Yes.
That night, Sarah found herself on the airstrip again, staring at the stars. The sky was too clear, too calm for what tomorrow promised. She felt him approach before she heard him, the silent one. He stopped beside her, arms folded, gaze tilted skyward. "You don't like the op," he said flatly. She laughed bitterly. "You got that from my silence." He didn't answer, just waited. And something inside her cracked. "I lost my brother," she whispered. 2 years ago, same valley, different map. They sent him into a mission just like this, underprepped, outnumbered, no chance to make it back. Command called it calculated risk." Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. "They calculated wrong, and I watched his name disappear into the dust." The silent one didn't move, didn't interrupt. She turned to him, tears burning, voice raw. "So when they tell me this mission is possible, all I hear is his voice, telling me not to let them forget him, and all I see is a body they never brought home." The silence stretched. It wasn't empty. It was full of grief, of rage, of memory too heavy to carry. Finally he spoke, low, measured. "I lost someone too, a sister, not in war, at home, wrong place, wrong night. Violence that didn't wear a uniform. Sarah blinked. He had never shared before, not once. His jaw tightened. I swore I'd never let silence swallow another life. That's why I don't waste words. That's why I fight the way I do. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw it, not calm, not distance, but pain buried deep. We carry the same ghosts, he said softly. Different names, same weight. Her throat closed. She wanted to answer, but the words wouldn't come. So instead she nodded. And for once, silence between them wasn't a wound. It was a bond.
The
The mission began under a moonless sky. The bird lifted, blades whispering against black air. The valley below was shadow and teeth. In the back the team prepped in silence, faces grim, movements sharp. Sarah kept her eyes on the horizon, but her brother's voice haunted her. Don't let them forget me. Beside her, the silent one checked his rifle, then met her gaze briefly. It steadied her more than any order.
the
The stronghold loomed ahead, lights scattered across the valley floor, supply trucks lined up like veins feeding a heart. Guard towers scanned the night. It was alive, restless, dangerous. Sarah's pulse thundered. She whispered into comms, "We're ghosts tonight, in and out before they ever know." But even as she said it, she knew ghosts weren't always unseen. Sometimes they lingered.
the
She dropped them at the ridge line, bird hovering like breath held too long. The team slipped into darkness, shadows moving through shadows. Sarah circled wide, eyes scanning, every nerve on fire. For long minutes nothing, just silence. Then gunfire. Sharp, brutal. Her headset lit with chaos. Contact, multiple hostiles. She tightened her grip on the controls, fighting the urge to dive in. Then his voice cut through, calm, grounded, "Stay with us, don't break." Her chest heaved, she held. Below, the team pushed through fire, detonating charges, cutting lines. Explosions rolled across the valley, flames licking the night. But enemy reinforcements poured in, endless, relentless. Sarah's bird shook as tracers arced skyward. She banked hard, dodging. "Extraction point hot," a voice shouted. "We're cut off." Her pulse spiked. She saw it, the team pinned near the supply trucks, enemies swarming. And then she saw him. The silent one, out front, rifle blazing, movements raw. He dragged a wounded soldier across open ground, bullets tearing the dirt around him. Her breath caught. It was her brother all over again, one man burning himself alive to save others. She couldn't watch it happen twice. "Hold on," she whispered in Dove.
the
The bird roared into the valley, guns screaming. Enemy lines shattered under the sudden fury. Trucks erupted, towers collapsed. Sarah's hands moved with fire, with rage, with something deeper than orders. And through the smoke, she saw him look up at her. Their eyes locked again. And this time she didn't see calm. She saw a plea. Not for him, for her. To survive this, to not let silence take her too.
the
The ramp lowered. The team scrambled aboard, dragging the wounded. Shouts filled the cabin. The silent one was last, covering them until the very second. Then he leapt aboard, slamming the hatch closed. "Go!" Sarah yanked the bird skyward, engines howling, fire chasing them into the dark. Bullets rattled, flares streaked, but she climbed, climbed until the valley was nothing but smoke behind them. Only then did she breathe.
the
Back at base, chaos again. Medics swarmed, soldiers shouted, flames still burned on the horizon. Sarah powered down, hands trembling. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. The door opened. He stepped inside the cockpit, helmet tucked under his arm. For a long moment, neither said anything. Then he spoke, quiet, rough. "You didn't let him be forgotten tonight." Her throat closed. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to hold it in, but it broke. The sob tore free. Years of silence, grief, rage, finally breaking. And he didn't mock her, didn't tell her to stop. He just put a hand on her shoulder, steady, warm, solid. And in that silence she felt it. Not emptiness, not loss, but something she hadn't dared believe in for years. Hoping.
the
The night was far from over. The war was still hungry. But in that moment, inside the dim cockpit, she wasn't alone. And that changed everything. Who would remember the silence after the war? Not the gunfire, not the briefings, not the arguments. The silence. That was what stayed. She sat on the edge of the ruined airfield, helmet resting at her side, rifle across her knees. The night had gone still. No helicopters, no footsteps, no coded chatter in her earpiece. Just the faint hum of power lines struggling to live again. Someone coughed behind her. A medic. Young, eyes too tired for his age, he asked if she was hurt. She only shook her head. Hurt? Yes. Wounded, not where he could see. He left her with a canteen. She didn't drink. Not yet. Her throat was dry, but her chest was heavier. She thought of him, those eyes that had silenced her once without words. Piercing, unshakable, almost accusing. Now they were only memory. What would she tell his family? What words were enough? None. She knew that already. The silence would have to speak for him. She ran her hand across the scarred concrete, still warm from the day's sun. She remembered when she mocked his silence, when she thought it meant arrogance or distance. But silence had been his strength, his way of carrying weight without complaint, his way of shielding others. She understood now, too late. Boots approached again. The captain, older, limping, voice hoarse. He sat beside her without asking. They didn't speak for a while. Just listened to the faint crack of cooling metal, the whisper of wind through shredded tarps. Finally he said, "We got them out. Civilians are safe." She nodded, a small victory, but her chest didn't loosen. He glanced at her, reading something in her posture. Then he told her something she didn't expect, that he had envied her. Her precision, her calm under fire, her refusal to break. She almost laughed. If only he knew the storms inside her. When he left, she stayed, alone again. She tilted her head back, watching the stars cut through the fatting smoke. She remembered sitting under different skis as a child, tracing constellations with her father. He had told her once, "You don't need to be the loudest voice to matter. Sometimes the quiet ones change everything." A memory that hit harder now, because she finally understood what he meant. The silence around her wasn't empty. It was full of sacrifice, of voices gone, of choices made when no one else could. It was the weight of lives saved, of lives lost. She picked up her rifle, stood slowly. Her shadow stretched long across the broken ground. No cheers would follow, no cameras, no speeches, only the quiet, and maybe that was right. Because sometimes dignity doesn't shout. It doesn't plead. It doesn't demand to be noticed. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts, and then fades into silence.